G'day again. This is episode 2 of Trev's Talk, and I'm your host, Trev. Last week I ended episode 1 asking, what has all this got to do with having powerful experiences at Medjugorje when I visited there in 1990? I had been trying to show that I had a childhood lacking in family love, but had replaced that love with strong belief in the spiritual world and had sort of transplanted my love onto Mary, the mother of Jesus. It is Mary that 6 people claim to be receiving visits from at Medjugorje. So there is a connection for me of Mary in my childhood and Mary again when I visited Medjugorje later in life. Or, put another way, I had experiences with the spiritual world as a child and again as an adult at Medjugorje in 1990. I need to tell you about my childhood experiences, and that means I will have to talk a little about prayers and stuff like that, because as a child I attended a school run by the Christian Brothers. However, when I visited Medjugorje as an adult, I was far from being a good Christian, as I had rejected all that stuff when I was about 14 years old. When about 12 years old, my schoolmates and me were often anxiously talking about the awful worrisome events going on in the world. We especially worried about atomic war breaking out between America and Russia. That threat was in the paper, in the radio news, and constantly everywhere daily. Us kids worried. So I prayed to God, God, please, when I grow up, give me power so that I have the means to make changes for good and make the world a better place. I also prayed to God, God, when I grow up, please use me in any way you wish to make the world a better place. I give you my free will. Those prayers became of great importance later on. When about 13 years old, I rode my bike to the local rubbish tip to find an old apron made of soft leather, which I knew had been thrown out. I wanted to use parts of it to make pouches for catapults or shanghais. I searched the rubbish tip using a grid search procedure I had learned from Boy Scouts. It was a very accurate procedure and was sure to find the old apron. I searched the tip from left to right and then from top to bottom and became extremely angry when not locating the apron. I was fuming, and I put my fists up to God and shouted, if I don't find that apron, I'm going to swear and swear and swear. Then I looked down, and there, right at my feet, was the old apron. It was a miracle. That apron had definitely not been there a few seconds ago. That miracle taught me that God doesn't like swearing, and silly as you may think it, I have not sworn much since. No matter what you might think, I was sure that God had made a miracle for me. When I was about 14 years old, after many months of praying to God for a miracle for my mum to get better mental health, and knowing full well that he could work a miracle for Mum if he wanted to, and remembering that he had worked a miracle for me to find that old soft leather apron, and yet he did not do it. No miracle for Mum. So I cut him off completely. I totally rejected him. If I ever had a thought about him from then on, I just swapped my thoughts to other things. After that, I carried on with my life, worrying only about myself mainly. I took all sorts of employment with the aim of getting as many dollars as I could. Money, girls, and booze were my priorities for many years. I settled down somewhat in my late 20s, married and had 2 kids. And then in 1990, when I was 49 years of age, I had my curiosity aroused by a few strange little coincidences leading up to me reading in a little pamphlet when sitting at home in Swan View that Mary, the mother of Jesus, was appearing to 6 kids in a village called Medjugorje, far away in Bosnia. When reading that, I was suddenly filled with powerful emotions, far stronger than normal, and I was filled with despair that I had not arranged the baptism of my kids. And stuff my childhood teachers had taught me 35 years before came crashing back. I was also given thoughts of how I had a special bond with Mary when I was young, and I was strongly urged to go to Medjugorje, and somehow Mary, who was appearing there, would help me. It was only years after my amazing supernatural experiences at Medjugorje that I realised the spiritual world had influenced me with those powerful emotions I had felt when reading that little pamphlet at my home in Swan View. If you have visited Medjugorje at any time since 1981, I would dearly love you to contact me so we can chat about your experiences there. I will give you my contact details. You can get me by emailing me at trevstalk@outlook.com. That email again is trevstalk@outlook.com. Now back to the story. Upon my arrival at Medjugorje, I was swept up into an amazing, incredible experience in my very first hours there. A woman was leaving our place of accommodation and heading off towards the rocky hill where Mary was first seen by the 6 visionaries. So I yelled out to the woman and asked if I could go with her. She accepted and we headed off together. When we arrived at the foot of the hill, I was suddenly seized and controlled by a great power. At the same time that I was bodily possessed, I was given wave after wave of strong, exquisite pleasure, washing over my upper body again and again. The pleasure was so strong I felt I could not stand it. But then another strong wave would wash over me, and another, and another. The exquisite pleasure kept washing over me the whole time the great power had me in its grasp. I believe now the great power gave me the exquisite pleasure so I would not get scared when being controlled and manipulated into carrying out the physical actions, and it may have been like a reward for having my free will taken away while I was possessed. Remember now, I gave my free will to God when I was about 12. The great power took me up the hill, made me do some weird physical action events, and then go back down the hill. And when I got back to the road at the base of the hill, the great power stopped the waves of pleasure and released me. I was left feeling mildly drunk on the walk with the woman back to our accommodation. The woman I had walked to the hill with was not affected like me. She said to me later that I acted like I was drunk, behaving weirdly and doing strange things. When doing the great power's action events on the hill, I had a bottle of water in my possession, and at one point towards the conclusion of the first action event, the great power gave me telepathic knowledge that the water I had was bestowed with massive power. Remember now, I asked God for power when I was 12. In coming weeks, I will tell you much more about that water and how I devised a plan whereby I could help others using the power of that water. I'll pause there for this week, but hey, wonderful listeners, thanks for tuning in to Trev's Talk. Your support means the world to me, and I would love to hear from you. Please click follow and leave a review on Spotify, or click subscribe and leave a comment on YouTube. I truly appreciate feedback. If you have stories or questions you'd like to share privately, feel free to email me at trevstalk@outlook.com. I read all messages and appreciate all input. That's it for this week. To hear more about fascinating Medjugorje and my experiences there, you need to tune in again next week. My email again is trevstalk@outlook.com. This is Trev, tuning out until next week.